Good evening, dear listener. Tonight, we drift softly backward into the quiet, intricate folds of another life. If you are already resting, limbs relaxed, thoughts loosening like thread from a spool, then you are exactly where you need to be. Let the weight of the day slip from your shoulders, like a silk gown sliding from its clasp. The room fades, the world hushes, and a softer, slower place begins to rise around you. A place of cool stone walls, the distant ring of chapel bells, and the dry scent of old linen and candle wax. Here, in a world not your own, you are very young, and everything is about to change. You are 13, perhaps 14, and your future has just been decided for you. Not with fanfare, not even with a conversation. It was settled quietly in a candlelit hall where you were not invited, your name written on a sheet of parchment alongside numbers, crests, and promises. You are to be married, not someday, soon. The news arrives like a breeze beneath a closed door. One moment, you are combing your hair with your nursemaid, wondering if the spring festival will include strawberries.
Ow.
The next, you are told to begin preparing for your departure. You are no longer your father's daughter, not in the ways that matter. You are a bride now, a name on a treaty, and the future queen of a kingdom you've never seen. The days that follow become a blur of hushed excitement and strange silences. Your mother orders new gowns stitched in haste, brocade, velvet, and pale silk that pools like water across the stone floors. Women whisper about your trousseau. Gold rings, prayer books, embroidered sleeves with pearls sewn in like teardrops. You are measured, fitted, pinned, brushed. At meals you sit straighter than before, and the adults speak in carefully curated tones, as though you might shatter if they speak too loudly. You're still a child in many ways, your slippers too big, your appetite unpredictable, but no one seems to notice anymore. You are becoming someone else, and the transformation is quiet, like frost forming overnight. Soon, your old world begins to fall away. You walk once more through the herb garden you loved as a girl, the thyme and lavender brushed warm by the morning sun, knowing this time you are saying goodbye. You trace the stone walls with your fingers. You sit by the window in your bedchamber, watching birds wheel above the rooftops. Even your cat seems to sense it, curling close against your skirts in rare stillness. And when the procession arrives with its banners, carriages, and stern-faced men in fine cloaks, you are ready, or at least you have practiced being ready. A kiss on your mother's cheek, a final prayer in the chapel, and you are lifted into the coach. Your home recedes behind you like a dream half forgotten before morning. The road stretches long and soft beneath the wheels, winding through villages and forests touched with early spring. You travel not in solitude, but neither in comfort. Your ladies-in-waiting ride nearby. Young women from good families tasked with watching over you. Some you know, some are strangers. Their laughter is cautious. Their hands never quite relax. Even here, you are not alone. Servants tend to the baggage, oxen pull carts filled with dowry chests carved with lilies and lions. Then them. Bolts of cloth, spices, jewelry, and written accounts of lands and titles promised to your future husband. Every mile of this journey is paved not with romance, but with diplomacy. You don't know him, you're betrothed. You may have heard his name in passing, seen a likeness in a worn tapestry, or perhaps caught a brief glimpse once at a festival when you were too young to care. He is older, or young, or grieving a former wife. The details change with every rumor. What stays the same is this: he is a king, or soon to be one, and you are to stand beside him. Not as an equal, not quite, but as a symbol, a promise, a silent treaty stitched in satin and bound by ceremony. The weight of it does not settle all at once. It creeps in slowly, like the chill through a window shutter left ajar. You arrive at dusk. The castle rises before you, taller than you imagined, more severe. Its towers seem to pierce the clouded sky, and the air smells of smoke, iron, and damp stone. You are met with pomp, of course, fanfare, guards, bows from strangers whose eyes linger too long. But beneath the pageantry you feel the tightness of expectations, as though the walls themselves are holding their breath. You step down from the carriage, your gown brushing mud, and your fingers are briefly touched by the man who will be your husband. He does not smile. His eyes are unreadable. The introductions are brief, the feast already prepared. You are led inside before your heart has fully caught up to your feet. Inside, the castle glows with torchlight and murmured Latin. Candles flicker in tall sconces. Painted saints peer down from the walls. Your new world is colder than home, both literally and otherwise. The stone floors echo with each step. Servants move like shadows. At supper, you sit beside your betrothed, while musicians play soft, meandering tunes. You pick at your food. Stew, barley bread, sweetmeats, and try to keep your hands from trembling. He does not speak to you beyond formalities. You don't speak to him at all. There is no script for this moment, only posture and poise. Later, your new rooms are shown to you. They are richly decorated, carved furniture, painted panels, embroidered cushions, but none of it feels like yours. The bed is too wide, the sheets too heavily scented. A prayer book rests on a table, but not one you've ever used. You ask for your favorite psalter to be sent from your trunks. A small act, a thread from your past. You sit by the hearth as a maid brushes your hair in silence. Outside, bells ring faintly from the chapel tower. Somewhere in the dark corridors, footsteps pass and fade. This is your new life. And though the crown has not yet touched your brow, the transformation has begun. You lie in bed that night beneath layers of linen and wool. The curtains are drawn, the room is still, you listen to your breath, soft as snowfall, and stare at the embroidered canopy above, tiny golden stars stitched into blue velvet. You are alone, but not unnoticed. A lady sits just outside the chamber doors. A priest is nearby. Even here, quiet is never truly private. Close your eyes, not to sleep, but to pause. To feel, for just a moment, like yourself. You are not ready. No one ever truly is, but you are here. And tomorrow, the next chapter begins. The morning arrives, shrouded in incense and early mist. Sunlight filters pale and thin through high stained-glass windows, painting the cold floor in fragments of gold and rose. Your chamber is quiet, though not still. Attendants move with hushed precision around you, lacing, folding, fastening. The air smells of beeswax and lavender, but beneath that, a trace of iron from the braids in your hair and the stiff embroidery on your gown. It is your wedding day. And though the hour is early, it feels as though it has already stretched 100 years. No one says it aloud, but you are being dressed not just as a bride, but as a queen. The gown is heavier than you imagined. Layers of brocade and squirrel fur, sleeves lined in pearls and stitched with your family's crest in glinting gold thread. It was sewn by women you've never met, measured by someone who barely looked you in the eyes. It does not feel like your own. When they lower the translucent veil over your face, the world dims. The fabric softens the light and mutes the faces around you. Your reflection in the tall, polished mirror appears distant, unfamiliar. Like a painted figure in a chapel niche. Beautiful, silent, unknowable. You're meant to look divine. You do not feel divine. You feel like a girl dressed in someone else's legend. When the procession begins, it feels both grand and unbearably quiet. The bells toll in slow rhythm, echoing across the courtyard and into the village beyond the gates. Servants line the walls, eyes downcast. A line of monks hums low verses in Latin. You walk slowly down the nave of the chapel. Flanked by noblemen in ceremonial garb, their sleeves dragging the floor like banners. Each step sounds louder than it should. Your shoes tap against the stone, delicate but sharp. Beneath your gown, your knees are trembling. You cannot feel your fingertips. You focus on the candlelight ahead, flickering in the sanctuary, and try not to look at the faces watching you. He is waiting there, the man who will become your husband. He wears a crimson mantle, a thin gold circlet resting just above his brow. You have seen him once before, perhaps twice. His features are difficult to read. Older than you by many years, perhaps kind, perhaps distant. Today he looks composed, almost solemn. He bows as you approach, and you curtsy in return, your veil fluttering slightly with the motion. There are no words exchanged, not yet. The ceremony has its own language, gestures, prayers, rings held aloft in silence. You are merely participants in an old and sacred play. The bishop speaks. He asks questions meant to be answered without thought. Repeat the phrases you have practiced, your voice steady, though it feels like it is floating somewhere above your own body. You hear his vows spoken in a low voice beside you. A ring is slipped onto your finger, thin, warm from his hand. Then a second one, heavier, colder, symbols of union, of alliance, of inheritance. You are crowned not with ceremony but with expectation. The crown is light, a token really, silver filigree shaped like leaves. But even so, it feels impossibly heavy. As though your head is no longer your own, you bow once, gently, and it glints in the candlelight. There is applause, but it is brief, more polite than joyful. The real celebration comes later. First, there is the signing of papers, ink, seals, parchment scrawled in careful Latin, your dowry confirmed, lands exchanged. Witnesses mark the moment. You are kissed on the cheek once, twice, by women with eyes like polished stone. Some murmur blessings, others simply nod. And then at last, you are led from the chapel. Aside, the sky has cleared. The cold remains, but sunlight catches in your veil and turns it to gold. A fanfare plays as you descend the steps. Somewhere in the crowd, children cheer. You do not see them. You keep walking. The feast is long, rich, and carefully curated. You sit beside your new husband at the high table above rows of guests arranged like painted figures in a tapestry. There is roasted capon, glazed with honey, platters of spiced fruit, stewed leeks with barley. You eat very little, not from nerves, though they still churn quietly beneath your ribs. It is the weight of the day that dulls your appetite, and the quiet awareness that every bite, every sip, every flicker of expression is being watched. You fold your hands in your lap. You smile when spoken to. You listen as lords speak of treaties and grain yields as though you are not there at all. Throughout the hall, music drifts, soft lutes, and a single harp, its notes like falling water. Dancers perform near the hearth, their sleeves trailing like ribbons. Somewhere near the back of the room, your old nursemaid watches from the shadows. You see her for only a moment, but the sight is enough to make your throat tighten. You sip from your goblet, the wine sweet and dark, and try not to think of the garden at home, of the books you left on the shelf, of the way your name used to sound when spoken without titles. You are Her Grace now, Her Majesty. Your old name exists only in memory. Later, you are escorted to a smaller room just beyond the great hall, richly lit, quiet, with heavy curtains drawn across the windows. A chamber prepared for ceremony, not for rest. The bedding ritual is simple here, though still observed. Your ladies remove your veil, unlace your sleeves, murmur reassurances in practiced voices. The king is present, but distant. He removes his cloak, says nothing. This moment, though cloaked in tradition, is not one of romance. It is duty, a mark of completion, a rite that must be performed even if its nature is softened by time and silence. You are not alone in the room. You never truly are. But the witnesses depart eventually, and the night settles in. You lie beside him in the vast bed, wide enough to hold a family, though tonight it holds only silence. The linens are clean, scented with dried herbs. The air is still. You do not speak. Neither does he. You close your eyes and imagine another version of this day, one with laughter, with familiarity, with love. But that is not this world. This world runs on expectation, on ritual, on presence. You do not weep. There is no grief in this moment, only stillness. Only the slow, relentless motion of time folding you into the role you did not choose. Outside, the bells ring one final time, marking the hour. You hear them through the thick stone walls, faint and distant. A new day is beginning already. And though your body is still, your mind is slowly reordering the pieces of your life. You are no longer a guest in this place. This is your court now. These are your chambers. This is your crown, however borrowed or bestowed. Sleep, if it comes, will be restless. But morning will come all the same. And when it does, you will rise not just as a wife, but as something far more fragile. A symbol, a sovereign, a queen. The air is thick and hushed, as if the castle itself has drawn in its breath and refused to release it. Outside your chambers, the feast winds down. Music fading to murmurs, footsteps soft across ancient stone. A final goblet clinks in the hall. A door creaks open and shuts. Inside, your bedchamber glows softly with the warm light of beeswax candles and the dim, dancing shadows they cast on the walls. The scent of rose water lingers, brushed into your sleeves, your linens, your hair. But beneath it, always, is the older scent of damp stone and something deeper. The smell of a room that has witnessed to many quiet nights like this one. The bedding chamber is prepared. Ritual, not comfort, guides every detail. The fire in the hearth has been lit for hours, reducing the chill but not banishing it. Curtains have been drawn, not merely to block out moonlight, but to signal privacy in a place where true solitude is a rarity. Two women stand by the carved oak doors. Attendants, not guards, yet their presence is firm, immovable. They do not meet your eyes. One holds a folded cloth, the other a tray with spiced wine. You are not expected to speak to them, only to exist within this arrangement, like a stone set into gold. You sit at the edge of the great bed, unmoving. The mattress is soft, stuffed with goose feathers, and covered in silken sheets that barely feel like fabric at all. Embroidered with golden vines, the coverlet pools around you like a tapestry left unfinished. The bed was not chosen by you. It was prepared in advance, measured and arranged by older women with tight lips and careful fingers. Your name has been embroidered on the pillows in tiny, even stitches, a detail that makes you feel somehow more distant from yourself. You trace one with your finger, watching the thread catch the candlelight. He enters quietly. The door does not creak. The attendants bow and slip away. He does not speak right away. Perhaps unsure, perhaps simply tired. His footsteps are muffled on the rushes beneath your feet. You do not look at him, not directly. Instead, you keep your eyes on the fire. It is easier to stare at flame than at a stranger's face, even if that stranger is now your husband. He approaches, says your name, your new name, the one granted by his title, and you answer with a nod. It is not unkind, the space between you, just unfamiliar. You are two players in a play whose ending is already written, even if the lines feel foreign. He sits beside you, the bed dipping slightly with his weight. There is no tension in his voice, only quiet formality. The words exchanged are few, polite, rehearsed. He thanks you for your grace, for your beauty, for your acceptance of this arrangement. You nod again. Somewhere in the silence, he removes the heavy rings from his fingers and sets them carefully on the nearby table. The firelight reflects in the polished gold. It flickers. You realize you are holding your breath. When you exhale, it is soft, but it breaks the silence like glass. There is no rush. This, too, is a ritual. Marriage must be confirmed. Not with words, not with documents, but with presence. Intimacy in name only. A ceremony hidden behind curtains. There are no witnesses now, not in this court. But you know the sheets may be examined in the morning, the chambermaids questioned. The quiet gossip already beginning in the lower halls. You do not think of that? You cannot? Instead, you move slowly with care, folding back the coverlet, smoothing the linens, finding a place for your hands to rest that feels natural. He follows your lead, or perhaps you follow his. Neither of you truly knows. What follows is not frightening, but strange. A page turned without knowing what came before it. His touch is not harsh, not unkind, only distant. His voice low, but not cruel. You close your eyes and think of something else. The pattern of the canopy above, the rhythm of your breath, the warmth of the fire on your toes. You do not cry, you do not tremble. You exist, fully, silently, ceremonially. The bed accepts your presence as it has accepted others before you. The sheets hold you like memory, soft, unyielding, sacred. You do not sleep, but you rest. That is enough. Hours pass. Perhaps only one, perhaps three. Time slips like water into the folds of the dark. He rises first, slipping from the bed without sound. He murmurs something, a blessing, a farewell, a promise. You're not sure? The door opens. A draft follows, and then he is gone. The room is yours again, though it never truly was. The silence settles deeper now. The fire is burned low. Your veil lies folded on the nearby chair, your slippers tucked beside the bed. You breathe in slowly. The roses are gone. Only the faint scent of ash and linen remains. You rise eventually. You wash in a bowl of warm water left near the hearth. Cloth is soft, but the water cools quickly. You dry your hands on the edge of the sheet and stare into the mirror. Not to admire, not to judge, simply to witness. The girl in the glass is changed, but not broken. Her eyes are older, her shoulders held higher. She is not afraid, not anymore. Only quiet, only awake. Yes. You slip back into the bed now, slightly rumpled, and pull the coverlet to your chin. This, too, is ceremony. This, too, will pass. As you lie still, staring at the carved beams of the ceiling, you think of the stories you were told as a child, of queens and noble women, of marriages forged in fire and celebrated with song. No one ever mentioned this part. The stillness, the hush, the way a new life begins, not with thunder, but with quiet surrender. You do not feel victorious. You do not feel owned. You simply feel present. The beginning is done. The silence, perhaps, is a kind of peace. In the far corridor, a bell rings. Dawn is not yet here, but the chapel prepares for its first prayer. Somewhere, footsteps echo faintly as servants begin to stir. You hear a door close gently in another wing. A candle gutters in its holder. Your eyes begin to drift. Sleep reaches for you not with force, but with gentle, feathered fingers. Your body finally softens into the mattress. You are not alone, not truly. But for now, you are untouched by duty, suspended in the quiet after ceremony. And in that stillness, at last your breath deepens. The morning arrives not with light but with motion. Its footsteps along the corridor, gentle knockings at your chamber door, the rustle of heavy fabric being drawn back from the windows. A chill drifts in, though the air outside is still gray and slow to warm. Your ladies-in-waiting hover just out of reach, offering gowns, pouring water into basins, folding linens. No one mentions the wedding night, not directly. But their eyes are careful, their gestures slightly exaggerated in deference. You are addressed, not as my lady, but as your grace now. A title that tastes strange in your ears, as though it belongs to someone else entirely. You sit upright while your hair is brushed. Slow, methodical strokes from a silver-handled comb. One of the younger attendants smooths your sleeves, while another selects a jeweled belt from the traveling chest. Today you are to walk the halls of the castle, not as a guest, not as a bride, but as a queen. The ceremony may be over, but the performance is just beginning. You are adorned in pale blue velvet, trimmed with white fur, a gift from your husband's treasury. It is beautiful, but heavy. When you stand, it clings slightly to your ankles. You walk slowly, carefully, the fabric whispering with every step. The castle corridors are colder than you remember from yesterday. Perhaps the firelight of the feast had warmed your senses. Or perhaps today the cold simply cuts deeper. You pass through antechambers filled with tapestries and carved benches, past windows too narrow to show much of the sky. Courtiers linger in groups. Some bow, others curtsy. Most glance at you with the kind of cautious curiosity reserved for rare animals or unexpected weather. They smile, but do not greet you first. Their words are measured, their tones too smooth. You smile in return and say nothing. It is early, and already the weight of eyes begins to gather around your shoulders. At the far end of the hall, you are escorted to the treasury room, a place more symbolic than practical. This is where the royal steward waits, flanked by scribes and clerks, their desks cluttered with ledgers, scrolls, and ink pots. Your dowry is to be confirmed this morning, not with ceremony, but with mathematics. They speak not to you, but around you. Your name is listed alongside sums and inventories. Land holdings, livestock, coinage. You are referred to in the same tone as one might use for a shipment of spices or a barge of timber. Your value is exacted, tallied, signed. You are a wife, but also an investment. It is not unkind, but it is unyielding. Some of the listed items are expected: bolts of silk, chests of silver, hunting dogs from your father's estate. Others surprise you: a pair of ornate candlesticks from a cathedral in the north, a crimson saddle embroidered with peacocks. Even the number of shifts in your wedding chest is noted, 12 each trimmed in lace. You realize as the scribes nod and mutter over the documents that your life has been catalogued in pieces, measured, weighed, made official. You stand quietly, gloved hands folded, and feel yourself shrink and expand at the same time, present but peripheral. A queen, and yet still something being handled. By midday, the castle is murmuring with whispers. You do not hear the words, not clearly, but you recognize the shape of them. Courtiers speaking in half-turned circles. Ladies leaning close during embroidery. Servants walking a little slower when they pass your door. The gossip does not surprise you. It surrounds queens like mist. What surprises you is the detail, how swiftly the private becomes public. Someone has seen the sheets. Someone has spoken to a maid. Someone noticed that you wore pearls instead of sapphires this morning. The court observes everything. What it cannot see, it invents. Not cruelly, just constantly. Later in the solar, you are offered a place by the fire. Women gather around you. Older, familiar with court life, wrapped in gowns that rustle like dry parchment. They speak softly, smiling, their words delicate and indirect. Compliments on your posture. Admiration for your embroidery. Observations about the weather. But beneath their words runs a second language. Quiet assessments, silent questions. Are you clever? Are you meek? Will you cry easily? Will you bear children swiftly? No one asks outright, no one ever does. But their eyes search for answers all the same, studying your fingers, your tone, your stillness. You respond gently. You offer polite words, but few opinions. You know already how tightly the castle walls can carry sound. It is safer to be dignified, safer to smile and let your silence speak. One noblewoman, elegant, older, touches your sleeve and remarks on the fineness of the thread. She tells a story about her own wedding, long ago, how her gown arrived 3 days late and had to be mended by firelight. Everyone laughs, even you. The moment softens. Someone offers you sugared almonds. The conversation drifts to feast day dresses and forgotten ballads. You relax just slightly, the weight on your spine easing like candle wax melting. That night, you return to your chambers and find a new tapestry hanging above your bed. It depicts your marriage, stylized and grand, all sweeping sleeves and golden halos. You are painted taller than you are, your face serene and distant. Your husband looks noble and kind. There are doves in the border and angels at the corners. You do not recognize the artist's hand, but you understand its purpose. It is not meant for you. It is for others. A declaration, a vision, a reminder. This is your life now, embroidered and imagined, rendered in colors brighter than truth. You ask for your writing case, a gift from your mother, lined in velvet and carved with ivy. You open it slowly and find the parchment still crisp, the ink pots sealed. You dip the quill and begin a letter. Not to your father, not yet. You write to your younger sister, still at home, still untouched by these walls. You do not tell her the truth, not fully. You write of the gowns, the music, the way the castle glows in candlelight. You mention the gardens you've not seen, the library you hope to visit. You sign your name in full with your new title and feel the ink settle like breath onto the page. Outside, the wind has picked up. It whistles through the narrow windows and tugs faintly at the curtains. The castle creaks like a ship at sea. Your ladies prepare your nightgown, soft linen, edged with lace, and light a taper at the bedside. One brushes your hair, while another turns down the bed. You thank them. They bow. They leave. The door closes. You're alone. Or as alone as one can ever be in a palace made of watchers. You slip beneath the covers, the warmth welcome after the weight of brocade and posture. You lie still, eyes open, staring at the ceiling beams, and you think, it has begun. It's not just the marriage, not just the crown, but the performance. The endless, careful act of being exactly what they expect. You are not frightened, not anymore, but you are aware, profoundly, precisely aware, that every stitch of your gown, every curl of your hair, every word you choose not to say matters. You turn onto your side. The pillow smells of lavender and starch. Your ring presses faintly against your cheek. Tomorrow will come, and with it, more questions, more whispers, more eyes. But for now, the silence is yours. You breathe, you rest. You listen to the wind. The days lengthen, though you hardly notice. Light slips through the castle windows earlier now, pale and cool, streaking across stone floors like a timid guest. You begin to learn the rhythm of this place, though it does not yet belong to you. The bells ring in thirds, morning prayers, midday mass, evening vespers. Meals come and go with ceremony, not hunger. People move in loops, from corridor to chapel to hall, always with eyes slightly averted, always with gestures half performed. You move among them, not invisible, but not quite real, like a wax seal pressed into too many letters. Distinct, expected, decorative. Your role is to be visible, but not intrusive. Present, but never entirely known. The queen is a presence, not a person. A symbol whose meaning shifts depending on who is watching. You feel this most acutely during formal gatherings. You sit on a raised seat beside the king, spine straight, expression measured, while the court converses around you. You nod when required, but smile softly. You do not speak unless asked. The words that pass before you are laced with land disputes, harvest taxes, and the dull, relentless churning of politics. No one asks what you think, but they notice if your hands twitch or if you reach too quickly for your goblet. You begin to learn their names, not all, but the ones who matter. Lord Everick of the Northern Marches, with his 2 white teeth and 2 long bow. Lady Sabella of the South, whose laughter never reaches her eyes. Sir Ailing, young and polished, who always addresses you with unnecessary formality. And then there are the ones who say little, but watch everything. The steward, the chaplain, the master of coin. They pass like shadows, but you feel their presence. You wonder what they report, what they guess, what they assume. The court is not hostile, not openly. But you are still a guest here, even in your own chambers. Your ladies help you navigate the unspoken language of this place. They tell you which hallways echo, which windows gather drafts, which noble families are favored, and which are merely tolerated. They smile as they speak, braiding your hair or mending your hems, but their tone carries quiet urgency. They are young, but experienced, daughters of noble houses themselves, trained to serve with dignity and to observe with silence. Through them, you begin to understand the layers beneath every gesture. A bowed head can be obedience, or mockery. A gift of fruit might carry insult. A pause at the door could signal doubt, or admiration, or both. You visit the chapel more often now, not always for prayer, sometimes for quiet. The stone benches are cold, but the hush inside is complete. Here no one expects performance. The flickering candlelight dances across the marble altar and makes the shadows seem gentler. You sit alone near the rear, hands folded in your lap, listening to the soft murmur of Latin from the priest at the front. But the sound itself, the rhythm, the cadence, soothes you. You light a candle each time you enter. A small act, a ritual of your own making. Never ask for anything, you only listen. In the afternoons, you walk the outer gardens. Spring has arrived, reluctant and pale. Snowdrops cluster along the shaded wall. New buds form on the apple trees, but they remain tightly closed. You walk slowly, trailing your fingers along the carved stone balustrade, your ladies following at a respectful distance. The garden paths are well tended, but feel artificial, too geometric, too carefully designed. A far cry from the wilder beds of your childhood. Still, the breeze is cool and fresh. The bird song is familiar. A robin flickers past your sleeve and disappears into a yew hedge. For a moment, you forget where you are. Occasionally a noblewoman joins you on these walks. Today it is Lady Adeline, graceful, poised, always slightly distant. She speaks of seasonal customs, of which lords are preparing for travel, of a recent tapestry gifted from Flanders. You listen, responding with practiced warmth. She watches you carefully, as if weighing something unseen. Finally, she speaks of your husband, his tendencies, his courtly habits, his favored falconer. You nod, absorbing the offered knowledge. There is no ill will in her voice, only a kind of gentle testing. You are a piece being placed into a puzzle that has existed long before your arrival. You must learn its shape before it consumes you. Evenings bring more formal appearances, suppers in the smaller hall, private music performances, or seated embroidery sessions with select noblewomen. You attend each without protest, draped in gowns you did not choose, adorned with jewels that feel cold against your skin. You smile and thank those who offer compliments, though you tire of hearing the same observations. Your grace, your beauty, your quiet nature. No one yet knows what you love, what you dream of, what you fear. You wonder how long it will take before someone asks, or whether they ever will. Your chambers remain your own, at least in name. They are warm, well-appointed, filled with silks and painted panels. But even here, you feel the layers of others who once slept in the same bed, walked across the same rushes, sat at the same writing desk. Their perfumes linger faintly in the drawers. Their initials are etched into the base of a mirror frame. You wonder if they felt this same sense of floating, of being seen but not touched, revered but not understood. You light your own candle each night now, beside the hearth. Another ritual, another small piece of control. One evening, as you prepare for bed, a servant brings a tray with a letter. The wax seal bears your father's crest. You break it carefully, inhaling the faint scent of home. His words are formal but kind. Proud of your new role, hopeful for your strength, careful in his praise. He does not ask how you are. Instead, he writes of trade agreements, border tensions, and the safe delivery of another chest of wool. You fold the letter 3 times and place it inside your psalter. You do not cry, but you do not smile either. You sit for a long while in silence, the candlelight flickering across the parchment as though trying to warm it. That night, you dream of corridors, endless and windowless, and voices whispering just beyond your reach. When you wake, the pillow is damp, and the fire has burned low. The stars beyond the narrow window have shifted. You lie still, listening to the soft breath of your maid asleep near the door. The silence in your chest is vast, but not sharp. It feels like a room waiting to be furnished. You pull the blanket higher and close your eyes again. Tomorrow will bring more names, more eyes, more careful movements. But tonight, you are only yourself. And in the quiet, that is enough. The spring deepens, and with it, the court's attention sharpens. Not toward politics, nor war, nor poetry, but toward your body. It happens subtly at first, like mist thickening in the corners of the morning. Your meals are altered, fewer sweetmeats, more stewed fruits, herbs folded into your porridge. A new apothecary arrives from the coast, bearing dried roots and whispered advice. Your ladies begin to glance at your waists as they lace your gowns. Not overtly, but with the kind of hopefulness that carries weight. The matrons smile more, though they ask fewer questions. The chaplain's blessings become more specific. The air grows heavy with expectation, and you begin to feel like a vessel. It is not said aloud, of course. No one speaks crassly in court, but the pressure hums beneath every surface. Your purpose, for all its poetry and ceremony, has begun to narrow. You are to bear a child, preferably a son, preferably soon. The king is polite, attentive in public, silent in private. His presence at your side has become routine, not unkind, but distant. A figure you lean toward during procession, a name whispered in your prayers. At night, he visits you sometimes. Other nights he does not. There is no pattern. There's no warmth either. Only duty carried out like the slow unwinding of a clock. You begin to notice the way other women watch you. The elder duchess, who fingers her rosary as you enter the chapel. The young baroness who whispers behind her fan. Even your own ladies, usually so carefully trained in silence, allow the occasional pause to hang too long. You walk through the garden and feel the pull of their eyes. Not unkind, not cruel, just curious, waiting. You pass a servant carrying linens and hear the briefest murmur. Not yet, then. It lingers behind you like a shadow that refuses to fall away. You do not stop. You do not flinch. But you feel it, deeply, quietly. The midwife visits your chambers weekly now, under the guise of friendly conversation. She asks After your appetite, your sleep, your humors, she watches how you rise from your chair, how you place your hands on your lap. Her voice is soft, always soft, but her gaze misses nothing. She speaks of fertility as though it were a clock one can wind, a garden one need only tend more patiently. You nod at her suggestions, sip her recommended teas, accept the cloth sachets she leaves beneath your pillow. You do not believe, not entirely, but you comply. It is easier that way. In the stillness of evening, you begin to think more often of your body, not as your own, but as something borrowed, observed, recorded. There is a sadness in it, but also a strange detachment. You look at your reflection and study the curve of your collarbone, the pale skin above your knuckles, the soft rise of your belly. You do not find flaws, only questions. Will you change? Will you be loved more or less? Will you be spoken to differently once you are no longer just a wife but a mother? You brush your fingers lightly over the fabric of your nightgown and wonder who, if anyone, will ever ask how it feels to become a cradle for a dynasty. One afternoon, while seated at embroidery in the Eastern Gallery, you prick your finger, not deeply, just enough to draw a drop of blood. A red pearl on your fingertip. The room stills for a moment. One of your ladies gasps quietly. Another hands you a cloth. You press it to your skin and smile, murmuring that it's nothing. But the image remains. The white linen, the red mark. You feel the shift in the room. Not alarm, but symbolism. They all see it. They all wonder. You fold your embroidery carefully and ask to retire early. No one argues. No one needs to. In your chambers, you find the window ajar and the breeze unusually sharp. You stand beside it, letting the cold sting your cheeks, and watch the clouds drift across the late afternoon sky. Below, in the courtyard, squires train with wooden swords. A dog barks near the stables. Life continues, steady and distant. Close the window, slowly, and sit by the hearth, warming your fingers. There's a strange quiet in you now, not fear, not even sorrow, just stillness. Like a pond with no wind, you are waiting. The court is waiting. The waiting becomes its own kind of ceremony. That night, you dream of a cradle made of glass, sight at something small and golden flickers, a light or a child or a flame. You reach for it, but your hands are wrapped in ribbon, silk threads that tug tighter the closer you come. You wake with a gasp, heart steady but unsettled. The fire has burned low. The maid stirs faintly on her cot. You lie back and watch the canopy above your bed, the stars embroidered there, the tiny stitches that map constellations. You wonder how many other queens have stared at this same pattern, asking the same quiet question. When a month passes, then another. The inquiries grow more frequent, though they remain disguised. A nobleman offers you a gift of silver bells, meant to be hung in a nursery. A bishop remarks during dinner that May is an auspicious month for birth. A visiting countess sends a charm said to ease conception, carved from bone, painted with blue dye. You thank them all, you smile. You place the bell in a drawer, the charm beneath a cushion. The bishop's remark is tucked away like a pin into a seam. You collect these things as one might collect feathers, weightless but impossible to ignore. Then one morning you wake with a dull ache in your lower back and a stillness in your belly that feels wrong. A quiet confirmation of absence. You say nothing. You rise, you dress, you sit for your hair to be pinned. But the silence inside you feels louder than anything spoken. At breakfast, you barely touch your food. At chapel, your candle flickers out while you are still kneeling. One of your ladies offers to relight it. Shake your head gently. It is enough. You return to your chambers and write a letter. Not to your father this time, not to your sister, but to yourself. A single sheet. No greeting, no signature. Only a handful of words. You are more than this. You fold the paper and slip it between the pages of a book you haven't finished reading. Then you rise, open the window, and let the wind move through your veil. Below, the trees are beginning to bud. Tiny green leaves against the gray stone. You watch them shimmer in the breeze and think, not yet, but perhaps. Someday. The bells ring for midday. Somewhere a child laughs. The court prepares for another procession. You are expected. You will go. But for now, You allow yourself one more moment of quiet, a still breath, a soft gaze toward something far away. The world outside continues. Inside, so do you. The sun rises pale, and veiled the morning they move you to the lying-in chamber. It is not a sudden decision. You have known for days that it would come. Your body has changed slowly, deliberately, a gentle widening of the hips, subtle curve of your belly beneath your gowns, the way sleep wraps you heavier now, pulling you into deeper silence. The court has softened its gaze, now tinged with satisfied approval. The whispers behind your back have quieted, replaced by nods and knowing glances. You are fulfilling your purpose. For this, they offer smiles. The lying-in chamber has been prepared in secret stages. Linens scrubbed, tapestries changed, carpets laid thick to muffle sound. The windows are shuttered, as tradition demands, keeping out light drafts and wandering spirits. The air is close, scented faintly with chamomile and milk. A priest has blessed the room, his Latin chant hanging for hours afterward like smoke. No men are permitted past the threshold now, only women. Midwives, attendants, ladies in waiting, hover near, speaking softly, moving with the purposeful grace of those who have done this before. Your bed is low and wide, surrounded by dark wooden posts carved with vines. The mattress has been softened with down, and the headboard tilted to ease your breath. You sit propped on cushions, the weight of your child pressing gently into your spine. At your side, a pitcher of cooled wine, a silver bowl of rose petals, your mother's small psalter. You open it sometimes without reading, letting your fingers move across the familiar pages. The margins are smudged with use. One corner is folded from when you last prayed over it in girlhood. That girl is far away now, but she lingers at the edge of your thoughts. In this room, time unspools differently. There are no bells to mark the hours, no visitors bearing news from the court. You drift in and out of rest, sometimes speaking, sometimes not. Oh, the women around you know not to force conversation. They press cool cloths to your brow, offer broth and sugared almonds, whisper small comforts you do not always hear. Outside the door, life continues. Decisions made, feasts prepared, letters sealed. But here, within these shuttered walls, there is only breath and pressure, and the slow unfurling of something ancient and inevitable. You think often of your own mother now, not her voice or her face, but her presence. The way she once brushed your hair with fingers scented of rose oil. The way she held her silence when your marriage was announced. Did she know what lay ahead? Did she once lie in a chamber like this, waiting for pain, for release, for joy? You imagine her younger, softer, more afraid, and you feel less alone. The days slip past. Your body prepares in quiet increments. The midwives check your progress with practiced calm. They speak to each other more than to you, trading glances and nods, their touch firm but not unkind. One of them, Elizabeth, hums as she works. An old tune with no words, carried from village to village, woman to woman. It settles in the corners of the room, weaving through the shadows, curling around your sleep. When you wake, you often find her smoothing the coverlet, straightening the pitcher, tucking in the folds of your shawl. She never asks how you feel. She knows. The first pain comes gently, a tightening, more pressure than ache, like a fist curling slowly behind your ribs. You do not speak of it right away. You wait. It passes, then returns, slightly deeper, slightly longer. Elizabeth notices without you saying a word. She places a hand on your wrist, counts your pulse, nods. Soon, she says softly, when you believe her. Labor does not arrive in a rush. It comes like mist rolling in from the sea. Quiet, damp, inevitable. The pains deepen. Your breathing shifts. The room grows dimmer, or perhaps your sight does. The women begin to move differently now. Purposeful, silent. Cloths warmed. Water poured. Lavender scattered on the floor. You focus on the carved edge of the bedpost, the small grooves worn smooth by time. You press your thumb into one and hold it there through each wave of pain. Your breath becomes rhythm. Your body becomes landscape. Rising, falling, opening. No screams, no outbursts. Only soundless endurance. The women guide you with touch, not words. You lose count of the hours. Night folds into morning, and again into day. You sleep in brief snatches between pain, the linen sheets damp against your skin. Your legs tremble, your lips crack. Elizabeth feeds you honey water between contractions, her fingers cool against your neck. At one point you weep, not from pain, but from sheer exhaustion. The tears fall silently. No one speaks of them. And then a shift, a pressure like the world turning inward. A silence so complete it seems holy. And from it, a cry. High, small, unmistakable. Life has arrived, a child yours. The women murmur praise. Elizabeth cradles the baby in linen, her hands sure and reverent. They do not bring the child to you immediately. There are things to be done, the cutting, the washing, the soft words spoken to keep spirits at bay. You lie back, stunned and hollow, your body a cathedral after vespers, still echoing with sound, still thrumming with something sacred. When they finally place the child in your arms, the moment is too large to hold. The baby is small, impossibly so, with a fuzz of dark hair and clenched fists the size of rosebuds. You do not speak, you do not smile. You simply stare, as though trying to memorize the shape of this fragile miracle. Oh, son. The word is whispered, almost reverently. A son, the court will celebrate, bells will ring. Messengers will ride. But here, in this hushed chamber, you are just a mother. A girl holding something she helped bring into the world. You feel both ancient and entirely new. You are not alone now, not ever again. The child sleeps against your breast, warm and heavy. Elizabeth covers you with a blanket and dims the lamp. She does not say anything more. The other women clean in quiet motions. One of your ladies brushes your hair. The room feels different now. Not lighter exactly, but fuller, as though the air itself carries a different weight. You close your eyes. The child breathes in tiny bursts. Your body aches in places you did not know could ache. But beneath it all, there is stillness, completion, and something close to peace. Later, when the herald announces the birth to the court, he will speak of legacy, of dynasties, of the future secured. But he will not speak of this room, of the hours endured, of the silent strength that is not their story, it is yours. And in the quiet, where candlelight flickers and breath steadies, you tuck that story into your heart where no one else can take it. The bells ring long and slow the morning your son is presented to the court. The castle stirs early, as if the stone itself knows this day carries weight. From your chamber window, you watch the gray light spread across the courtyard like cream into tea. Flags ripple from the ramparts. Trumpets sound from the west tower, not jubilant but ceremonial, controlled. The birth is past, the heir has arrived. Now the kingdom must be told, must see, must believe. You are not yet strong enough to stand, but they dress you carefully in your bed, propped against pillows, draped in silk the color of river pearls. Your hair is braided, your cheeks dusted with a rose-scented balm. You are to look radiant and contained. The baby is brought in swaddled tight, tiny as a folded scarf, his head covered in the thinnest layer of gold-fined hair. He is still sleeping through the commotion with the careless grace of the newly born. You want to hold him, but today, he is not yours. Today, he belongs to them. The court, the line, the future. He is lifted gently by the nurse and carried into the hall, arms extended, as if he were not a child but a relic. The gathered lords and ladies rise. Their faces shift, some with wonder, others calculation. The child is real. The queen has succeeded. The dynasty continues. You hear the words echo from the corridor. A son, born healthy, to Her Majesty the Queen. The steward repeats it with precise formality. Applause follows. Bells resume. Somewhere below, townsfolk cheer beyond the walls. In your chamber, you exhale slowly, your palms flat against the coverlet. The midwife nods once, approving. The ladies bustle to tidy your pillows, refresh your drink, adjust the folds of your sleeves. It is done. The hardest part, they say, is over. You are not certain. What lies ahead feels harder in ways no one speaks of. The child is not returned to your arms. Not yet. A nursemaid, trained, experienced, takes him to the nursery in the eastern wing. where sunlight warms the stone floors and carved birds decorate the shutters. The room has been prepared for weeks. Fine woolen blankets, a cradle inlaid with mother of pearl, silver bowls for washing, herbs sewn into tiny sachets to hang from the rafters. Everything is in place. Everything except you. For the next few weeks, you are not meant to nurse, nor rock him, nor sing. You are to rest, to heal, to resume your role with composure. Your ladies assure you it is for the best. But at night your body disagrees. You wake with aches that echo his hunger. Your arms feel empty. Your dreams are filled with soft cries, with small hands reaching through mist. You begin to rise when the castle sleeps, wrapping yourself in a shawl and sitting near the hearth, listening to the wind rattle faintly at the window panes. You speak aloud sometimes, not to the servants, not to God, but to the boy himself. Simple things, half-murmured. A lullaby from your own nursery. A memory of snow falling on the orchard at home. A wish whispered without expectation. You do not ask for more. Only a moment. Eventually, you are granted one. Quietly, without ceremony, you are allowed to visit him. The nursemaid curtsies and steps aside, holding open the door to the nursery. The scent hits you first. Milk, crushed lavender, warm skin. He is asleep again, one tiny hand curled beneath his chin. You cross the room in silence and lower yourself beside the cradle, pressing your fingers to the edge. You do not lift him. Not yet. You only watch. His breath is shallow, but steady. His lashes fine as dust. His mouth slightly parted. You memorize everything down to the way his blanket folds over his toes. The nurse offers to bring him to you. You hesitate, then nod. He is placed in your arms carefully, his weight surprisingly light, like carrying a loaf of warm bread. He stirs, but does not cry. You rock him gently, your body remembering what tradition tried to erase. For a few minutes, you are not the queen. You are not the wife. You are only a woman holding her child, in a room where no one expects anything of you but silence. But the visit is brief. The nurse retrieves him gently, and you return to your chamber. There, your mother-in-law waits, the dowager queen. Draped in black silk and rubies, the color of dried rose petals, she sits straight-backed in your high chair, her fingers laced together. She does not rise when you enter. She nods once, her face unreadable. The child is healthy, she says. You agree? He will need discipline, she continues, and instruction. He must be strong. You nod again. You are too tired to argue. Besides, you know the game. This is not a visit. It is a claiming. She speaks of lineage, of duty, of tutors from the north who are skilled in Latin and writing. She does not ask how you feel. She does not mention the hours you spent alone in the lying-in room. Her focus is fixed on the boy, his destiny, his usefulness, his inheritance. You listen without comment. When she finally rises to leave, her eyes soften, barely. She pauses beside you and rests her gloved hand briefly on your wrist. You've done well, she says. Ma, but now you must let others do the rest. Then she is gone, her veil trailing like smoke behind her. In the days that follow, you see the child in glimpses. The carriage prepared for his first outdoor blessing. Squire carrying word of his first tooth. A lullaby you once hummed, now sung by another. You ask to hold him more often, and sometimes they allow it, but never long. There is always a reason, a feeding, a nap, a schedule. You wonder how many queens before you lived this same pattern. Child as symbol, not companion. Legacy as distance. Love as something measured in protocol. Still, you find your moments. You ask to walk the garden paths when the weather is fair, and they permit the child to be carried beside you. He sleeps through most of it, but sometimes his eyes open wide and unfocused, catching the light through the leaves. You speak to him softly, not as queen to prince, but as mother to child. You tell him of the sparrows nesting in the hedges, of the thyme blooming along the wall, of a girl who once knelt by a pond and counted frogs, who never thought she would wear a crown or give birth to a boy who would be watched by so many. When you return indoors, your ladies note the hour, the number of steps, the way the breeze has flushed your cheeks. You smile and let them fuss. But inside, you carry something they cannot measure, a quiet certainty. a love that does not need permission. You may not feed him, you may not rock him to sleep each night, but he is still yours, in the way he quiets at your voice, in the way his fingers curl around your veil, in the way you dream now, not of corridors, but of meadows, of lullabies, of hands too small to hold a scepter. The bells ring again, not for you, not for him, but you still listen. And when the day ends, you sit beside your hearth and light one candle, always one. A quiet act, like a whisper into stone. You do not need to be seen to be certain. You are a mother, not theirs, not entirely, but your own. And that, in the hush between duties, is enough. The gowns arrive in trunks taller than you are. For men carry each one, sweating beneath the weight despite the spring air. The fabrics are folded with sprigs of rosemary, wrapped in waxed cloth, labeled in Latin. Each was sewn by hand over many months. Not in this castle, but in workshops far from your sight. A dozen seamstresses working by torchlight, some of whom will never see your face. They are gowns meant not just for beauty, but for message. They speak in color, in shape, in texture. They are your language now, even when you are silent, especially when you are silent. The first is red, not bright, but a deep solemn shade that echoes the banners hung during royal births. It is trimmed in ermine and lined with silver thread. You are told it is to be worn for the king's formal address. You study yourself in the mirror as it is fastened around you. The long train, the velvet sleeves, the way it shapes your body into something impossibly still. The garment is breathtaking, but you cannot breathe in it. Every movement must be rehearsed, every step calibrated. When you walk, it whispers across the floor like distant wind. You are less woman now, more architecture. They dress you 3 times a day: morning gown, midday gown, supper gown, each more elaborate than the last. Your chamber resembles a theater behind the scenes. Bolts of silk, lacquered boxes of pins, maids with needles between their teeth, and always someone kneeling to fasten something at your ankles. Your son's garments are simpler, tiny tunics, soft caps, barely wider than your palm. But yours grow heavier with every passing week. Gold thread, stiffened skirts, jeweled girdles that rest cold against your hips. The weight presses downward, not unlike the child once did. A different kind of burden, less tender, more visible. At court, they comment not on your words, but on your sleeves. One lady calls them poetic. Another remarks that the blue of your underdress matches the Virgin's robe in the chapel fresco. You nod, smile, accept the compliments as they're handed to you. No one speaks of your son's teething. No one asks what book you last read. You are admired, not known. You are radiant, they say, regal, resplendent. You wonder how many layers a person can wear before they vanish beneath the brocade. In the gallery, you pass the old portraits. Queens long buried, their faces tilted just so, each draped in impossible finery. You stop before one, a woman whose expression is serene, almost bored. Her dress is pale green, embroidered with wheat, symbol of fertility. Her hands rest on her stomach. You do not know her name, but you recognize the pose, the message, the silence. You wonder what she thought as she sat for that painting, whether her shoes pinched, whether she was tired of the weight. The gown for the high feast of St. Isidore is the heaviest yet. Crimson damask, overlaid with gold lace. Pearls sewn into the collar like frozen tears. It takes 3 women to dress you, 1 to hold the train. You cannot sit fully. You must perch. When you turn your head, the collar presses into your jaw. The bodice is so tight, it hides the rise and fall of your breath. You feel sculpted. You feel still. You feel like something on display in a chapel niche. Beautiful, untouchable, unnecessary. During the feast, you sit beside the king. He speaks little. The hall is full of music, of clapping, of praise. Dishes are paraded before you: glazed pheasant, almond tarts, pomegranate wine. You taste little. Your hands rest on the table like porcelain. A musician plays a ballad composed in your honor, speaks of your wisdom, your grace, your golden hair. You feel yourself begin to drift. Not from weariness, but from repetition. The flattery is well-worded, but weightless, like petals dropped into a deep well. Afterwards, back in your chamber, your maid unlaces the gown with careful fingers. You feel it fall away like armor. Beneath your chemise is damp with sweat. Your shoulders ache. A faint red mark circles your ribs where the bodice pressed too tightly. You do not speak. Neither does she. You nod, and she pours warm water into the basin. You sit and bathe your hands. The room is quiet. Your reflection in the copper mirror looks softer now, tired but real. The next morning, you ask for a simpler gown, not plain. They would never allow that, but softer, less structure. Pale gray wool with blue embroidery at the sleeves. The seamstress hesitates. It is not the custom for appearances, she says. You meet her eyes, and I will not appear, you reply. She does not argue. You wear the gown in your private chambers. No jewels. No corset. When your son is brought to you, you lift him easily, hold him longer. You rest his head against your chest, breath warm through the linen. You rock him gently, humming an old song from home. For once, no one interrupts. That afternoon, you sit at the window and watch the courtyard below. A young maid hangs linens. Two knights spar lazily with blunted swords. A falconer carries a bird on his arm, the feathers shining in the late light. The wind moves gently through the herb beds, carrying the scent of sage and thyme. You breathe deeply, the wool of your gown soft against your skin. You are not radiant. You are not resplendent. You are quiet, and it feels like freedom. Later, you are summoned to the small council chamber. The king is there, along with a handful of advisors. You stand at the edge of the room, your hands folded, the pale gown trailing at your heels. They speak of trade routes, coin shortages, foreign guests. You are not asked for your opinion, but you listen. And when one question is addressed to you, something minor, ceremonial, you answer with clarity. The room pauses. The steward nods as Her Majesty says, "You are not dressed in gold, but you are heard. That night in your journal, you draw a gown. Not the ones they sew for you, but the one you wish for. Soft linen, dark blue, no trim, no collar. Just fabric and air. A dress for walking barefoot in the grass. A dress for holding your child without constraint. A dress for sitting at your writing desk without being noticed. You close the book and smile. You may never wear it. But in imagining it, you feel lighter. You imagine other queens doing the same. Drawing dreams between embroidered pages, holding quiet rebellions stitched in ink and thought. And so, you continue. You wear the gowns when required. You shine when asked. But beneath each jeweled neckline, each layer of silk and lace, you carry the memory of that pale gray wool, of the freedom and soft sleeves, of the weight that can be shed, if only for a moment. The mornings begin the same, but you are learning to notice what changes. The flick of a glance between your ladies when a tray is brought. The way a ribbon is folded with more care than needed. The extra pause before answering when you ask something simple. They are loyal. You believe that. But they are not blank slates. They carry stories like perfume, delicate and lingering, never quite revealing their source. You do not press them. Queens do not ask too much. But you observe. An observation here is its own kind of power. Your women come from noble houses, some minor, some ambitious, chosen not by you, but for you. Their manners are perfect. Their smiles rehearsed. They know when to curtsy, when to vanish. But in the quiet of your chamber, as they pin your hair or warm your gloves by the hearth, they allow themselves small slivers of truth. One hums an old song from the coast, one you haven't heard since childhood. Another folds a letter too quickly when you enter. Third blushes when a young knight's name is mentioned, though she denies knowing him. These are not crimes. Only shadows of lives they're told not to live too fully. You begin to learn their rhythms. Cecily, with her steady fingers and serious brow, who reads poetry in the servant's stairwell when she thinks no one is watching. Alienor, who braids your hair in silence each morning, but speaks in her sleep with a voice full of longing. Margaret, who presses lavender into your sleeves and knows exactly when you need a story, not advice. They are careful, all of them, but not perfect. And within those imperfections, you glimpse something deeper, a shared understanding. You were all, in your own way, playing roles that were written long before you entered the scene. One rainy afternoon, you find Cecily alone in the corner of the library. She is not meant to be there. She has no books in hand, only a small square of paper and a smudge of ink at her wrist. She startles when she sees you, but you say nothing. You only smile and pretend not to notice. The next morning, she brings you a cup of spiced milk before you ask. No apology is given. None is needed. You do not mention the letter? But later that day, your embroidery cushion is stuffed with softer wool than usual. Small kindness in return. You begin to realize that secrets are a kind of language here. A quiet form of barter. A sideways glance can be a warning. A well-timed compliment. A gesture of protection. You take no pleasure in this game, but you begin to understand it. You begin to speak it. When Margaret stumbles slightly while carrying your gown, you pretend not to see the embroidered handkerchief that falls from her sleeve. When Aliener lingers by the window longer than necessary, watching the practice yard below, you mention the weather instead of the swordplay. These are not deceptions. They are permissions. Gentle agreements to leave some truths unspoken. Your son, now stronger and louder, begins to recognize your voice. He quiets when you enter the room. He laughs, a high, startled sound. When you make faces behind the nursemaid's back, your ladies watch, amused, affectionate, but also alert. They know what you know. Your son's affections are yours only for a time. Soon, others will claim him. Tutors, chaplains, advisors. But for now, he is still your secret too. The softness you are allowed. The person who sees you not as a queen, not as a figure in a gown, but simply as warmth. Evening, the king dines privately with the steward. You are left with your ladies in the rose parlor, a chamber reserved for informal hours. Though nothing in your life feels truly informal. The fire crackles. A lute is passed around. Someone begins to sing, softly without ceremony. The tune is foreign, slow, and winding, a melody that seems to fold in on itself. You do not know the words, but the sound roots you to the moment. Your head rests lightly against the back of the chair. For the first time in days, your feet are bare beneath the hem of your gown. The song fades. Someone laughs quietly. Margaret shares a story about her cousin's wedding, which ended in a thunderstorm and a collapsed cake. Cecily counters with a tale of a goat escaping into a feast hall. The room warms, not from fire alone, but from something rarer, shared imperfection. You join in with a memory of your younger sister dying, her hands blue with woad, trying to mimic a tapestry. The women gasp, then giggle. For a moment you are not above them, you are among them. But moments pass quickly in a castle. And the next morning, a note arrives from the Dowager Queen. A reminder about your son's upcoming baptism, a list of names to approve, a subtle mention of decorum, no direct rebuke, only suggestion. She has eyes everywhere, you're reminded, even in the rose parlor. You fold the letter and tuck it into the drawer beside your gloves. You say nothing, but that evening, you find a small sprig of heather on your dressing table, left by a hand that did not want to be seen. You place it in a jar. Not because it is beautiful, but because it speaks without needing to. You do not ask your ladies about their families. You do not inquire about their dreams. But you begin to offer them small kindnesses. A ribbon passed without comment, an hour's rest when no one is watching, an old story shared while walking the gallery. These are not gestures of generosity. They are gestures of trust. And in return, they begin to guard you in quiet ways. A reminder whispered before you speak. A servant turned away at just the right time. A letter retrieved before others can read it. Trust is not something spoken here. It is stitched into the seams of routine. It is carried in silence. And your ladies, bound to you by duty, are also bound by something softer. They do not confess, but they protect. And in a court where words can be weapons and silence a shield that is more valuable than affection, at night, as they draw your curtains and wish you rest, you sometimes feel their presence linger a moment longer than necessary, as if waiting to see if you will ask something. Or say something. You rarely do. But when you murmur thank you, it is more than politeness. It is recognition. You know them. Not completely, not clearly, but enough. The hall is already full when you enter. Not noisy. The court is too well trained for that, but full in the way a forest is full just before a storm. Bodies shift in practiced rhythm. Servants move with downcast eyes. And every plate, every goblet, every tapestry seems to gleam just a bit more brightly than usual. This is not a private supper. This is a feast, a display, a ceremony of appearance. Your gown is pale gold tonight, stiff with embroidery. Your hair is twisted into braids that weigh more than they seem. You glide through the archway like a ghost wrapped in honey and silk, and every eye, as expected, turns toward you. The king is already seated. He rises as you approach, not from affection, but formality. He kisses your cheek. His lips are dry, smells of ink and wine. You take your place beside him at the high table, elevated, illuminated, utterly exposed. Below you, nobles and ambassadors fill the benches. They nod as you glance their way. Their smiles vary, some warm, some wary. You return the expressions without holding any too long. You are not here to connect. You are here to perform. The meal begins in courses, as always, thin broth laced with herbs, glazed poultry resting on jeweled platters, tiny pears stewed in honey and vinegar. Servants bring and remove in flawless procession. A mistake here is rare. Rarer still is acknowledging it. You eat little, just enough to be polite, too much and they'll whisper, too little and they'll worry. You sip wine in small, deliberate tastes, your hand curved lightly around the stem. Your napkin rests untouched in your lap. Every movement is calculation wrapped in grace. You don't resent it anymore, simply the shape of your evening. Across the room, a new noblewoman sits among the mid-tier lords, high enough to be noticed, low enough to be uncertain. Her gown is a season behind in fashion. Her eyes flicker toward you again and again, like a bird watching a distant hawk. You remember when you were her? A girl rehearsing stillness, trying to understand what power looks like when it smiles and says nothing. You meet her gaze once, brief, deliberate, and offer a soft nod. Not encouragement, not warning, just acknowledgement. She will need that more than anything. The musicians begin just before the third course, 2 lutes, a harp, and a singer whose voice curls through the rafters like steam. The song is one you've heard many times. It tells of a queen who disguised herself as a knight to save her child. The court adores it. They love stories where queens are brave, as long as bravery comes with a veil. As the melody rises, you glance at your husband. He is speaking with the steward in low tones, nodding occasionally. His hand resting on the arm of the chair like a statue's. He is not unkind, but he is elsewhere. You have learned not to take this personally. Conversation at the table is polite, rehearsed. A baron compliments your recent appearance at the chapel. Duchess remarks that your son resembles you more each day. You thank them both. You do not mention that your son has just begun to bite the edges of his wooden toys, that he falls asleep best to the sound of crickets outside your window. These are not details meant for the feast. They are too small, too real. Below, the lower tables clatter gently with laughter and low conversation. Trenchers are filled and emptied, wine replenished. A nobleman attempts a toast. Another interrupts him. There is a beat of tulued laughter, and then the careful murmur resumes. You can feel the shift in the air, a collective awareness that you are watching, that someone might be watching you. Appearances are a game of mirrors. One reflection out of place, and the whole illusion quivers. A dish is placed before you, something intricate, a pastry shaped like a swan filled with minced meat and dates. You cut into it with practiced precision, the crust breaking with a soft crack. You chew slowly, smile, say very fine. The cook will be told, your words will be remembered. A dozen servants saw you lift your fork. 2 scribes may record it. You wonder, not for the first time, what it would feel like to eat alone, unmarked. To wipe your mouth without ceremony. To taste something without thinking of who made it and why. Your thoughts drift as the meal continues. Your feet ache within embroidered slippers. Your waist aches from the tight lacing. You shift your shoulders beneath the heavy sleeves. And yet no one sees your discomfort. They see only the queen, elegant, composed, divine. You have become a painting that breathes, statue that speaks when spoken to. And in this you find a strange kind of peace. It's not joy, not freedom, but stability. And in this court, stability is as precious as rubies. As the feast winds down, a boy approaches, carrying a carved tray. Upon it, a letter sealed with unfamiliar wax. He bows silent. You accept it, noting the seal, a minor house from the eastern coast, likely harmless. But you will not open it here. Instead, you slip it into your sleeve. Later, in your chamber, you'll read it alone. By candlelight, with the door shut, and your ladies dozing nearby. It will contain little of note, but the moment will belong to you. Dessert is served, candied nuts, small pastries shaped like flowers, bowls of spiced custard. You taste one bite and nod your approval. Another song begins. This one livelier, meant to signal closure. A few guests begin to shift, preparing their farewells. You catch a glimpse of a younger knight sneaking a smile at one of your ladies. Shh. She lowers her eyes, but her shoulders lift just slightly. You say nothing. These small rebellions are not yours to stop. You only protect them when you can. The king stands. The hall quiets. He offers a few words. About unity, about the harvest, about the peace that holds for now. You stand beside him, your hands lightly resting against the table's edge. When he finishes, you nod once. The guests bow. The room breathes again. You're let out with care, as though your body were still part of the feast. A final course to be admired. You keep your spine tall, your pace smooth, your expression soft. When the doors close behind you, your muscles relax by degrees you barely notice. Back in your chambers, the gown is peeled away, inch by inch. Your maid places warmed stones beneath the footstool. Although your hair is loosed from its braids, falling in soft waves across your shoulders. You sit at your writing desk, bare feet tucked beneath your robe. The letter waits, the candle flickers. And outside, the feast begins to fade. Its music carried away on the wind, its stories already being reshaped in memory. You write nothing tonight? You've said enough, but you light one extra candle. It's just for yourself. And you sit in the hush that follows ceremony, breathing evenly, feeling not like a queen, but like a woman who has survived another performance. The feast watched, and you let it. But now the eyes are gone. And in this quiet, no one expects anything from you at all. The chapel smells of dust and old incense. It's not unpleasant, more like time pressed into fabric, into wood, into stone. It clings to the tapestries and to your sleeves. As you move slowly through the nave, the priest ahead of you walks with a bowed head, robes brushing the floor in careful rhythm. Behind you, your ladies move in practiced silence. You pass beneath arches painted with saints and martyrs, their eyes fixed upward or inward, depending on the light. You've learned not to meet their gaze. The painted ones, like the living, often demand more than they offer. You are here today not for prayer? Not exactly. You are here for the feast day of St. Elgiva, a queen canonized for her patience, her purity, her obedience. A woman remembered not for what she did, but for what she endured. The bishop has prepared a special mass. There will be music, readings, a public procession. You are to sit in the front row, cloaked in white, a candle in hand. The symbolism is deliberate. You are a queen, honoring a queen. A woman bearing witness to another woman's quiet erasure. Your gown today is modest, though still rich. Ivory wool, embroidered only at the cuffs. A simple circlet rests atop your braid. The heaviest part of your attire is not the fabric, but the meaning sewn into every thread. You are not here to be noticed. You are here to reflect reverence, to glow gently like wax near flame. The air is cool inside the chapel, but your palms are damp. You press them briefly against your skirts and take your place on the carved bench. The service begins. Chant drifts upward in long, echoing waves. Latin phrases stretch across the vaulted ceiling like ribbons of sound. The bishop speaks of virtue, stillness, of accepting one's role with grace. You keep your eyes lowered, not because you believe you are unworthy, but because that is what is expected. A queen should appear humble in worship, modest in holiness, beautiful, but not too much so, present, but never commanding. The rules are written in silence, enforced with glances. At the midpoint of the ceremony, you are asked to stand. A girl no more than 10 brings you the candle, not as long, narrow, already lit. You take it from her without speaking. Bow your head. The flame wavers, then steadies. Around you, the court murmurs in awe. They do not see the way your wrist trembles slightly. They only see a queen cloaked in white, bathed in candlelight, perfectly still. You have become part of the ritual now. Not a woman, symbol. And yet within that symbol, a thought stirs. You wonder who Saint Elgiva was when no one was watching. After the Mass, you walk in the procession through the cloisters. The sky is a pale stretch of silk above you. Rain threatens, but holds back. You pass rows of monks and guards, pages holding books they cannot yet read. The path is strewn with herbs. Rosemary, sweet rush, marigold, meant to purify the air and protect the soul. The scent rises with each step. Behind you, your ladies keep pace, veils fluttering, their faces unreadable. The people gathered beyond the gates watch in reverent silence. Some bow, some weep. One child points and says, "There she is." You wonder which she he means? The king does not attend. He claims illness, or perhaps diplomacy. You are not surprised. He rarely joins these ceremonies unless political gain is promised. Religion, for him, is a pageant. For you, it is more complicated. You do not believe in all the teachings, but you believe in quiet. You believe in rooms that echo gently, in firelight on stone, the feeling of hands folded with purpose. You've never heard God's voice, but you've heard your own in the silence after prayers. And sometimes that is enough. You return to your chambers after dusk. The maids remove your gown in silence. One brushes the scent of incense from your sleeves with a velvet cloth. Another unpins your hair. You sit by the fire, robe draped across your shoulders, and let the room settle around you. You can still hear the hymns, faint and distant. You wonder how many queens before you walked the same procession, wore the same white, held the same flame. You wonder how many truly believed, and how many simply endured. Later, you take your psalter from the shelf, the one given to you as a child. The corners are worn smooth, the pages smell of ink and lavender. You open to a random passage, but do not read it. You simply hold the book, letting its weight rest against your knees. Your candle flickers on the writing desk. A moth taps faintly at the window pane. The wind is picked up, but the shutters hold firm. There is a knock, soft, brief. Margaret enters with a covered tray, warm milk and slices of honeyed bread. She sets it down and hesitates. "Did your grace find comfort in the chapel?" she asks. Her voice is gentle without presumption. You pause, then nod. "Not comfort exactly," you reply, "but quiet." She bows. "Sometimes that is all we need." She leaves without another word. You eat slowly, not from hunger, but from habit. The bread is soft, the milk soothing. Your body is still tired from the posture, the presence, the hour spent as symbol. But inside a calmness lingers. Not joy, not faith. Just the strange relief of having fulfilled what was required and returned whole. You think again of Saint Elgiva. The way her story is always told from a distance. Praised for restraint, for sweetness, for sacrifice. No mention of doubt. No mention of boredom, or aching joints, or the weight of expectation. You suspect she was more complicated than they say all women are. But history prefers simplicity, especially in saints. You finish your milk and blow out the candle. The room is dark now, save for the last orange glow from the hearth. You lie back on your pillows, draw the blankets to your chest, and in the hush between breath and sleep, you whisper a prayer. Not to God, not to any saint, just to the still air around you. A wish without words, a moment without posture. In this silence there is no crown, no procession, no watching eyes. Only a woman breathing. For tonight, that is enough. The court does not change. It bends, occasionally. It pauses. It reshuffles its faces. But the rhythm, the pulse of power beneath polished floors and painted ceilings, remains constant. You begin to move within that rhythm more easily now. It's not to resist it, but to understand its beat. Where once you drifted along its current, now you learn how to step lightly across it. You smile when needed. You bow your head at the right time. But your eyes have learned to listen. You speak little in council chambers, but when you do, the room quiets. You offer no opinions on war or grain taxes. You ask a simple question instead, about supply chains, or a bishop's travel route, or how many carts made it through the mountain passes last winter. The steward stammers. The chancellor frowns. The king tilts his head. You say no more? But later that week, the records are checked twice. You are not praised. You are not acknowledged. But the message lands. You learn who visits the kitchens too often. Who lingers near the barracks, who avoids the chapel, and who is always first to kneel. You learn the names of maids who pass letters without being seen, of scribes who whisper after dark. You do not use this knowledge, not yet, but you carry it like an amulet. It's not for vengeance, for balance. The court does not belong to you, but now it notices you differently. Not just the queen in silk and pearls, the queen who listens, the queen who remembers. Your son begins to speak. First your name, then a string of half-formed thoughts. He repeats things he hears from his nurse. Stories, sayings, sometimes lines from court gossip you wish he hadn't caught. You correct him gently. You teach him your language, not just in words, but in tone. You show him how to sit quietly through a meal, how to greet the chaplain with respect, how to look people in the eye without fear. He is still small, but you see how they watch him. They measure your success in his posture, in his manners, in the clarity of his voice when he speaks your name. The king remains distant, not cold, not cruel, simply far away. He rules through others, through his steward, his advisors, his uncle in the west. You no longer wonder if this is deliberate, you know it is. He keeps his hands clean and his image polished. You have become part of that image. In that, you find something like leverage, not power, not truly presence. When you stand beside him in procession, when you sit quietly at his side, people see balance. They see harmony. They do not question what lies beneath. Sometimes the king seeks your counsel. Not directly, not on matters of weight. But late at night during quiet hours, he will sit near your hearth, drink in hand, and speak aloud without naming his fears. He wonders why the northern lords delay their messages. He doubts the loyalty of the archbishop's heir. You do not offer solutions. You ask questions. You tilt the mirror gently. He rarely thanks you. But the next day, his decisions shift. Slightly, subtly. Enough. You begin to keep a small ledger tucked beneath your writing desk. Not a journal. Those belong to girls. This is quieter, drier. A list of who said what, when, and in what tone. A line here, cross there. You do not judge the entries. You do not dwell, but the act of writing steadies you. In a world of gestures and veils, ink is honest. Your ladies notice. Not the ledger, but the change in you. Margaret watches you from the mirror as she adjusts your collar. You sit straighter now, she says one evening. Like someone who knows something, you smile. Perhaps I do. She says no more, but she begins to speak more freely in your presence. The others follow. Their secrets do not vanish. They only soften. We're no longer just the queen they serve. You are the woman who sees and chooses when not to speak. You do not seek alliances. They find you. A duchess with lands near the river sends you tapestries before winter. A visiting nobleman leaves rare books in your chamber. A bishop asks for your thoughts on a marriage contract. You nod, smile, send thank you notes written in your own hand. You owe them nothing, but you remember. And when the moment comes, you use what you've kept. A servant falls ill. A stable fire is hushed up. A young knight vanishes, and no one speaks his name again. The court ripples, but does not tremble. These are not your problems, but you follow their edges. You ask the right questions to the wrong people, the ones who cannot answer, but know that you asked. You let the rumors pass through your chambers like wind through gauze. You remain still. But your stillness begins to mean something different now. You walk the hall not as decoration, but as witness. When people greet you, they measure your expression. When you pass in the corridor, voices drop. You are not feared.
Not exactly.
But you are no longer underestimated. And in a place like this, that is as close to safety as one might hope for, still, you are careful. Always careful. You laugh when expected. You touch your son's curls during feast days. You kiss the relics. You hold the queen's roll like a teacup, delicately but with steady fingers. You know how easily porcelain breaks. At night, when the castle stills, you sit at your desk and open your ledger. You review the week, a shipment delayed, a priest too curious, A lady's maid dismissed without reason. You write the facts. No conclusions. You place the book beneath the loose board in the floor and close the cover with care. Before bed, you blow out the candles yourself. You pull the blanket high and let your breathing slow. You are not victorious. You are not in control. But you are learning the shape of the game. And in a place where rules shift with the wind, understanding the shape is everything, outside the moon hangs full and unblinking. It's somewhere a bell rings. But here, in the quiet of your room, you are simply a woman exhaling. And tonight, that is more than enough. The parade begins before dawn, not with horns or banners, but with hands. Hands pulling open trunks, lifting polished boots from their wrappings, folding fur-lined cloaks into neat shapes across the backs of chairs. Your ladies move in quiet rhythm around you, brushing powder across your cheeks, fastening pins into your hair, tying delicate ribbons at your throat. Outside, the courtyard fills with hoofbeats and the low murmur of soldiers preparing to ride. This procession will pass through the village and beyond. A show of unity, wealth, peace. You are not needed for decisions, only for presence. You wear blue today. A gown made for sky and silk, its sleeves long, its hem embroidered with doves in flight. The color is meant to calm, the symbolism carefully chosen. On your head rests a thin circlet of silver, too fragile for battle, too ornate for privacy. You feel neither warrior nor woman in it, more like an emblem polished for the crowd. Your horse waits in the stables, draped in matching cloth, has been trained not to flinch, not to rear, no matter how loud the cheers become. A creature taught like you to carry the image of stillness through noise. The king rides ahead of you, flanked by his guard. Your son, still too young to ride alone, sits beside you in a carved wooden cart pulled gently behind. He waves as the gates open. You do not. You nod. A soft gesture. A practiced one. You remember your first parade, the clamor of voices, the sun in your eyes, the sudden realization that people saw you not as yourself, but as idea. That has not changed, but you have. You've learned how to ride through it. The village gathers on either side of the road. Men remove their caps. Women bow. Children wave fronds of herbs or throw petals, many of which miss their target and fall quietly to the mud. You smile, just enough. Your posture perfect. Your hands light on the reins. You do not look too long at any one person. Eye contact is currency here. To give too much is to invite misreading. Instead, you look through them, not cruelly, just carefully. Veil made of gaze. Behind the faces, you notice what most would miss. The uneven stitching on a child's cloak, the careful braiding of an old woman's hair, a soldier's wife with red eyes from too many nights awake. You wonder what they think of you, if they believe the stories. If they imagine you eat from golden spoons, sleep on velvet pillows, never stumble or ache or weep. Perhaps they must. It gives shape to the world. Queens do not falter. Queens do not forget names. Queens do not sit awake in the hours before dawn with a ledger and an ache between the shoulder blades. The cart bumps slightly on a stone. Your son laughs. His nurse steadies him, whispering something that makes him beam. You smile again, this one more real, less rehearsed. The boy turns to wave at you. You lift a finger in reply, careful not to unbalance your posture. Somewhere behind you, someone cheers. A flag flutters, and the moment is gone. The parade continues beyond the gates, into the outer fields where the poorest tenants have gathered. These are not the ones who see you in chapel or market. These are the ones who work from sun to snow, who will never meet your eyes, who bow until you pass, then lift their heads without expectation. If you want to slow your horse, to pause, to reach for something other than performance, but you do not. The procession cannot falter. You are not here to see, only to be seen. By midday, you arrive at the chapel on the hill. The village priest greets you with trembling hands, his robes recently mended. He offers the king a prayer, the court a blessing, and you a garland of herbs. Not flowers, practical, fragrant, humble. You accept it with both hands, bowing your head. The scent is sharp, rosemary, sage, lavender gone dry at the edges. It reminds you of your childhood gardens, of kitchens, of sickness. It is not a romantic gift. It is real, and for that you are grateful. Inside the chapel, a short mass is read. The benches are hard. The candlelight wavers. You kneel on stone worn smooth by generations. The priest speaks of duty, of patience, of reward beyond suffering. You fold your hands. You keep your back straight. But your thoughts wander. You think of a falcon caged too long. You think of linen dresses, worn barefoot in spring. You think of the way the doves on your hymn seem to fly forward when you walk. What would happen? You wonder if you followed them? After the service, you return to the road. The sun is higher now. Your sleeves are warm. The horse shifts beneath you and you adjust your grip. You glance behind you. Your son asleep in the cart, his head tilted to one side. His nurse wraps a cloth over his brow. The guards resume their positions. The people cheer again, but softer this time. Less out of awe, more out of routine. You arrive back at the castle just before dusk. Your legs ache as you dismount. Your face is stiff from smiling. The wind has tangled a few strands of hair beneath your circlet. Your ladies greet you with quiet efficiency. One removes your gloves. Another loosens the belt at your waist. A third brings cool water for your hands. You murmur your thanks. You climb the stairs to your chamber alone. Inside, the room is dim, shutters half closed. A single candle lit. You remove the circlet yourself, placing it on the table beside your psalter. The gown is too heavy to untie without help, so you sit instead, still wrapped in fabric meant for public eyes, and rest your head against the back of the chair. Your body hums with fatigue, not pain, just the echo of being looked at for too long. The garland of herbs sits on the windowsill. You lift it, inhale deeply, and place it beneath your pillow. Later, when you lie down, the scent will linger in your dreams. Something earthy, sharp, unadorned. Something true. And perhaps you think that is the only real gift the parade ever gave you. The castle quiets earlier now. Summer has faded, and with it, the sharp brightness of the court's longest days. The light that spills through the windows in the late hours is softer, slanted, filtered through golden haze. The torches are lit before the second bell. The scent of wood smoke follows you even indoors, clinging to the folds of your gown, the fibers of your sleeves. Autumn has arrived, not with celebration, but with steady certainty, and with it comes the knowing. The game does not end. It only changes shape. You have played it long enough now to see its rhythm. You know how alliances bloom and fade, how flattery hides envy, how silence can be its own kind of speech. You've learned when to speak and when to wait, when to ask and when to simply be present. You've seen those who press too hard fall into shadow, and those who bow too often vanish from view. You do neither. You walk a careful line between visibility and distance, clarity and quiet. Not to manipulate, but to survive. Your son is taller now. He walks beside you rather than behind. His tutors speak highly of his memory, his posture, his instinct for tone. He mimics what he sees, how the king walks through the garden, how you lower your eyes before lifting them with intent. He asks questions now. Why must people bow? Your servants speak differently in your presence. You answer gently, not to deceive, but to pace the truth. You tell him, people behave how they've been taught to behave, and if you are kind to them, they will remember. He nods, and you see in his eyes the slow forming of a future crown. It's not yet heavy, but visible. You reach for his hand and walk the long gallery together, passing the portraits of those who came before. Some of them look like you. Others, nothing at all. Their eyes follow as you pass. You wonder what they would say, these women framed in oil and silence. You wonder if they too learn to wait, to watch, to give without vanishing completely. The king remains steady. His hair's begun to gray at the edges, though he hides it beneath darker dyes. He consults you more often now, though never when others are present. He trusts your instincts. Quietly, he does not praise. But you see the way he listens when you speak, the way your questions shape his next conversation. Your marriage is not a love story, but it has grown into something sturdier, a companionship rooted in necessity and over time and mutual understanding. One evening, as the fire crackles low and the castle settles into silence, he says, "You've done well." You do not ask what he means. You simply reply, "So have you." He nods once, then turns away, back to his goblet, back to the embers. You do not need more. Not tonight. You sleep well that evening. Not because of comfort, but because of clarity. You know what you've built. Even if no one ever names it aloud, your ladies are older too. Margaret has lines around her mouth from smiling. Cecily has taken a post in the Queen's Chapel, her voice now heard in morning prayers. Eleanor is gone, married to a distant cousin of a northern duke. You wrote her a letter? She never replied. But sometimes you imagine her walking through snow, her cloak drawn close, humming the same songs she once sang while brushing your hair. You do not miss her exactly, but you remember her well. Your own name is spoken less often now. You're referred to more by title than identity. Her Grace, the Queen. Madam, you sign letters with flourishes that were once unfamiliar, but now flow easily from your hand. You do not flinch when addressed, but you miss the sound of your name, the one your mother once whispered when folding blankets, the one your sister once shouted through the orchard. Sometimes when you are alone, you say it aloud, just once, just to hear it again. The walls do not answer, but the sound lingers like perfume. On the final day of harvest, you walk the chapel alone. The air smells of beeswax, drying leaves, and something older, dust that has settled for generations in the cracks between flagstones. You kneel before the altar not to pray, but to pause. You think of your first day here, the fear, the silk too heavy on your shoulders, the smile you practiced in the mirror before anyone saw you. You feel that girl still somewhere inside you, small and watchful, waiting to see how this story would unfold. You whispered her, "We made it." The candles flicker. The wind moves gently against the stained glass. You rise, smoothing your skirts, and step out into the echoing corridor. That evening, a letter arrives from your sister. Her fourth child has been born. She includes a pressed flower, flattened within the fold, a violet from the edge of her garden. You hold it between your fingers. No title, no throne. Just bloom and memory and springtime caught on paper. You place it in your psalter and leave it there. Later, you visit your son in his chambers. He sits with a book open, a small carved bird beside him on the desk. You run your hand through his hair. "Read me," you say. He smiles and begins. His voice is soft, steady, uncertain. What? But it grows stronger with each line. You listen not to the words, but to the way they carry meaning. The way they carry him. The game never ends. You know this now. But not all games are cruel. Some are simply long, winding, full of roles and rules and silences. Within them, you've carved out something gentle, something lasting. Not power, not freedom, but grace. You leave his room when the candles burn low. In your chamber, the fire waits. The robe is warm, the window open. You sit for a moment and breathe. The world is quiet. You are not the girl you were. You are not just the crown, the gown, the soft gaze at feast or altar. No. You are a woman who has endured without hardening. No. A woman who has chosen when to speak and when to keep something for herself. Maybe we haven't changed as much as we think. We still search for meaning in the quiet. Still long to be seen beneath the role. Still hope to leave something softer behind. Thank you for being here. Sweet dreams.